Hey guys, and welcome to another Sims 4 video, and today we're actually going to be working on creating some, not all just yet, of our Wolfquest wolves. And we actually have a really pretty collie right here. Wow, I really like the looks of this guy, but we're not going to be keeping his looks, we're going to be making him into something much more wolf-like, because today we will be making some of the Generation 1 Wolfquest wolves. So that'd be Katari, Terrell, and their puppies, and we'll be using Play with Genetics for that. But as we go down the line, we may take some of the puppies and refine them further, because some of them did change quite a bit in their looks between young adulthood and adulthood. So to start off with, though, we're just going to be playing with a random generation and trying to get something mildly close to what we started with. First of all, though, we need to get started by figuring out how we're going to create a wolf-like look to begin with. So generally what I do when I want to create a wolf in The Sims 4 is I'll take probably a Malamute, and then either a Malamute or a Husky, but usually like a Malamute and a German Shepherd gives you a decently wolf-like appearance. Sometimes the face needs a little bit of tweaking, but this is actually not too bad. Of course, the coat will need some modification, but we may end up doing a lot with just the paint work anyway. So let's go ahead and we'll adjust the facial shape just a little bit. I'm going to actually bring the nose in slightly. I want to, is there a way I can, let's look at the nose shapes. Head shape, here, let's see. If I do something like that, that's pretty good actually. Can we bring this, can adjust the nose that way? We can, okay, yeah, that's how you can adjust the lips. And then we'll adjust the ears as well, and you can have one flopped over, which is going to be important later on. But for now, we want to have both of them upright. Something like this, probably. We're gonna make that, change the shape a little bit here. Maybe make him a little taller. And can we maybe, well, actually I don't like that quite so much. If we do something like this maybe, and then shrink him down just a little bit. That's not too bad. That's actually pretty good, I think. Alright, and then let's look at the eyes and get the eye shape. Let's, oh, not that. Maybe if we make them a little larger. I tend to give my my animals pretty large eyes just because it kind of adds to their character, I feel. No, I don't want to do that. I want to make them larger there. That doesn't look too bad. Okay, you can rotate them slightly. You can move them a little bit. And I think for the most part that looks pretty good. I'm going to shorten the muzzle just a little bit, I think. And maybe make it a little bit skinnier here. Yeah, something like that maybe. And then we'll raise that just a bit and maybe make it wider. Because we are going to be creating Qatari first. And so we want to give a little bit of character to her facial shape. And I tend to do a little bit of a narrower, somewhat finer muzzle when I just to create some distinguishing features when I work with a female versus male. Oftentimes I will, just to kind of distinguish visually, I tend to give the females a little bit more of a slighter sort of nose shape, as opposed to the males often will have a little bit blockier one. That's of course, that's characterization. That's just how I show a little bit of a difference. I'm gonna actually look at, if we make this bigger somehow, if we do that, and not so much. I'm gonna look at the different shapes because I'm actually not totally happy with how that one looked. Can we, here, if we do head shape, it's not gonna be that. This maybe. This is not quite so bad. I don't like how far down the muzzle droops is the problem I have with this. If we do something more like this, this might work better, maybe, if we bring it in. Yeah, that'll be better. That'll be better, and then of course we'll work with the ears again and get those fixed up. Something like this, maybe, would be good. Yeah, something very much like this. I think that's a decently wolf-like appearance. I'm gonna adjust the angle of the muzzle there, and then we will go ahead and do a black nose, because Qatari does have a black nose in the canon. Can we extend that even a little further? Yeah. So I'm going to give her a fairly short, blunted sort of muzzle because I feel like that's pretty fitting to her looks. Let's also look and see how close we can get with a coat, with one of the default coats. Maybe this one might even work if we kind of bring this into... She had a pretty... She didn't have a super light underside. If we do something more... a little bit more, like if we kind of blend these together and this is maybe a little bit darker. That's still got a very husky appearance though. And I don't want her to look like a husky. We want to make it clear that she is in fact a wolf. And let's see, something like this, maybe if we lighten this bottom. Maybe something like this might work. And then if we take this and make it a little bit more brown as opposed to just red. And then if this got even darker, possibly something like this. I do stylize her quite a bit when I draw her, but I'm also trying to combine some of the looks perhaps that we would see with her actual Wolfquest looks. I'm not sure I like that one quite so much. Maybe this. This might actually work pretty well. If we did something like this and then darker, not quite that dark brown. That still has a very light shoulder patch though, and I'm not sure I like that quite so much. That's kind of cool. Maybe. Not quite. Maybe this, if we made it lighter there. Or something like this possibly. And then if we take this, okay, that's still going to be the underside. This is going to be where we start getting darker. That's going to be really dark. And then this is a little bit of the underside. So we still want that to be fairly light. And then this will be more brownish. I think we'll go ahead and go with something like this for her looks, I think. Maybe we'll go just a little darker. We'll add some variety like that. And then we'll paint on a little bit more in addition to that. But let's also work with her eyes because she does actually have gold eyes. I think that's a pretty nice eye color for her. And yeah, I like that quite a bit. And then I think overall, well, she's a fairly lean wolf, so I'm going to make her a little bit skinnier. And I think overall, this is a pretty good look for her. I tend to enlarge the paws when I'm making a wolf just because wolves do have pretty big paws. And I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and go into paint mode and then just overlay a slight bit here. I'm going to darken this down and then we'll make it not a full opacity there. Darken it down a little bit. And then we can maybe... I want to paint some of the gray she has on her back in here just a little bit. That's a little too gray though. Let's lighten it up just a bit and then maybe make it a little bit more brushy-ish. Let's darken... I want it to be darker than what's there already. And then yeah, we'll give her a little bit of that gray on her back. And then... yeah, I think that's pretty good, and then we'll give her a little bit up here too, maybe, and then kind of darken down her a little, maybe just a little bit on the base of her tail. I think that's pretty good. We'll go ahead and do another layer here, just add a little bit more of that gray. Actually, here, if we're going to do another layer, we're going to do it real lightly there. And I think that looks pretty good. Overall, I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and go back, and I think that's pretty close to how she actually looks. The other thing I am going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to see if they have what collar types they have here because she does wear a radio collar, but I think something like that is going to look too much like a domestic collar, so I think we're better off just not giving her anything at all. Unfortunately, there's not really anything good radio collar-wise for The Sims 4 because it's mostly meant to deal with domestic animals, and I don't know of any radio collar custom content at this time. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to name her Qatari, and she is going to be female, and then wolves don't bark as much as they howl, whine, vocalize in other ways, but we do have to choose a bark type. They do bark, they just do it mostly as, they don't quite bark the same way that domestic dogs do. They use it mostly as, mostly to communicate when there's danger. But I think that's a pretty decent range for if she was going to bark. That's probably what it would sound like. She is a wolf. Oops. So we are going to go ahead and label her appropriately. And then I'm going to go ahead and change her traits because I don't know... Loyal is a pretty good one. She certainly was loyal, but I'm not sure if that's so much of a defining trait. I would say she's stubborn. She was certainly tenacious at the very least. I would say, I don't know that she was outrightly aggressive. She was kind of independent. I feel like independent is a pretty good trait for her, especially in the beginning. She was quite independent, and I would say she's a hunter maybe, because I mean, of course, a wolf kind of has to be. So I think those are pretty decent traits for her. And let's go ahead, and what I'm gonna do, I think, well, I'm not gonna copy her traits. What we'll go ahead and do is when we add in another dog here, there we go. That's definitely not how Terrell looks. We're gonna be making Terrell next. I'm actually gonna use an Akita as a base as opposed to the Malamute this time, because that will give us a little bit of a firmer body type, I think. Like, it'll be a little bit more muscular and well built. And no, getting there, but no, nope, no, not really. I'm looking less at the tail type than I am at the facial features, because the tail is a lot easier to adjust. Maybe it is better to use Malamute than Akita. We'll just see, or maybe we just got really lucky. Forehead bulge is really big there, and that's not something I'm so keen on. That actually, this, as far as the facial structure, is something I can work with. I think we're gonna go with this, and I'm gonna work with the facial structure here. I'm actually not gonna pull that down, but I'm gonna make the muzzle itself bigger and maybe a little bit more like that, and then we'll work with the ears. I'm gonna bring them down a little bit. I'm gonna make them less tall and a little bit wider. Terrell has fairly large ears in my imagination of him, at least. There's not a lot of distinction in that sort of thing in game, and then of course the tail will be hanging down here. And then I'm going to make the face just a little bit fluffier. I'm going to make the muzzle a little bit wider. There we go. And that is a really big nose, isn't it? We'll bring that in just a little bit so that it's not quite so huge. And then let's maybe adjust his eye position to be just slightly more up. Not so much larger as up, just a little bit. And then he does have green eyes, which is somewhat uncommon for a wolf, but I think it can, in very rare circumstances, happen. But it is very, very uncommon, especially in pure wolves that haven't been bred with dogs. But what's more common is yellowish with green tint. And this has kind of got some yellow in there still, so I feel like that's a relatively plausible coloration. Let's look at, he had fairly dark fur overall, maybe more like this, except a little bit less blue somehow. Maybe if we made that slightly lighter. And then if this was a little bit more, if it's less blue, that's really greenish. No, not quite so much that fur, I think. Maybe this. What if we, okay. If we did something sort of light, maybe a little bit bluish, but not, I don't want it to be, I don't want him to look super blue is the thing. And then that's the underside. So if we did something like that, something like that, that's actually, I want to change this just a little bit. That makes him look really blue. This does give him a kind of bluish look, but you know what? Honestly, it's not that bad. It's not overwhelmingly blue. And I actually kind of like that. He was very gray in color, and he did have a slight bit of the blue in there. It just wasn't quite as pronounced as here. Actually, honestly, that's not that bad. I actually kind of like this look for him. And something is still striking me as wrong about this muzzle. Maybe, is it that? Is it, maybe it's how his actual nose is, or something. Maybe, yeah, okay. There we go. Yeah, I actually like that quite a bit, and I'm gonna make his paws, I feel like Terrell had really big paws. I feel like he just did. He was a pretty, I feel like he was a pretty large wolf in general. And so I think we're going to kind of reflect that a bit here. I'm going to shrink his ears just a slight bit because, well, I do feel like he had big ears. I think that was a little bit too big, maybe. And then if we bring him in just a little bit there, yeah, that's not bad. Okay. And I think overall that's a pretty good look for him. What I am going to do is I am going to take him in paint mode here. And I'm going to take white and I'm going to lower the opacity. And I'm just going to paint some white on his paws here and kind of lighten them just a little bit because he did have very light colored paws, and so we'll kind of reflect that a little bit here just by showing that his feet are fairly white in coloration. We'll make sure we show that here. And I think that's pretty good. I want to adjust his looks though. I feel like his neck is not quite shaped right. It's a little thick and his head can maybe be a little bit wider and a little bit bigger. I think let's bring his eyes a little closer together possibly. But I think overall that's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. And I think that's a bit better as far as proportions go. So we'll go ahead and his name is Terrell. And we'll go ahead and I got the genders mixed up. Go ahead and make sure he's set to male, and we'll give him for the bark. That sounds pretty good to me. I mean, again, wolves don't really bark all that much, but if we have to choose, that sounds okay. And we'll go ahead and make sure he's labeled as a wolf. I like the loyal trait because he certainly was a very, very loyal guy, and he was quite friendly. Much more so than Qatari. He kind of balanced her out in that sense. And I think I don't know. He was a pretty good hunter too, but I kind of almost want to give him the playful trait because he kind of was a bit of a goofier, more laid back sort of wolf in a lot of ways. And he kind of counterbalanced Qatari quite well in that sense. Although he also was quite smart. I think I'm gonna go with playful because he was a pretty playful wolf, and that'll give us kind of a nice blend of traits here. And I think let's make sure that he doesn't have any collars or anything. Oh, that's paint mode. Pet clothing. Let's make sure he doesn't have any collars. So he actually doesn't, so that's good. And I think overall this is pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save here, and then I'll save these guys separately, and then I'm going to create each litter of puppies separately. And if you guys want to download their puppies as well or download a specific litter, you can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and save these guys, and we will be right back. And here we go. So I'm now going to take these guys and we're going to use the play with genetics to try and kind of come up with similar looks to how some of the puppies looked. And we'll go one litter at a time. So this will be the first litter. We'll go ahead and hit play with genetics here. So we're going to be creating a child. That's adorable. That's honestly adorable. But we want to make sure we are creating a child between the two of them. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go up here, or go look like this, because the puppy looks are quite different. They're quite radically different, and that's kind of close, honestly. So let's see. That's getting there. A lot of these aren't too bad, honestly. So let's see. I think still I don't think we'll go with that one. That's actually, I want to keep this look, I think, because this is a pretty decent look for Neo, possibly. Neo was from their first litter, and that we are doing the first litter right now. So let's go ahead and go back to puppy. So that's how she'd look as a puppy, but I'm going to go ahead and put her as adult just for now so we can kind of look at her a little bit more. We'll go ahead and hit done, and of course we will set her to female. Her name is Neo. And, okay. There we go. Why is it? Okay, it was just kind of a glitch. And I'm going to set her back to puppy once we take a look at her looks here. And remember, this is how she would look as a puppy. We may go into more detail with some of these guys a little bit later on, but we're just going to use the randomized genetic now for the sake of not going into great depth and detail with them all right now. But if you guys do want to see us go into more detail with some of the families, we can certainly come back and do that. For the sake of time, though, we're not going to be doing that today. So I am going to set her back to puppy, and we'll go ahead. And she was a very... Nia was good with the water, so she was very smart. Let's see, I'm trying to remember everybody's traits now. I would say she was probably a good, or I would say, maybe, I'm gonna say sleuth, and I'm gonna say loyal, because I think she was a pretty loyal wolf as well. And then, we'll go ahead and give her that voice. And then, of course, we do have the relationships set up properly. And because she is a puppy here, I'm going to go ahead and give her blue eyes, because wolf puppies do have these very... I think this one is maybe a little bit better. I don't know. I'm going to go with this one, actually. Wolf puppies do have blue eyes, but they change colors as they get older. So we'll go ahead, and we may not get through all the litters today because we have quite a few to go through. So let's go ahead, play with genetics again. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to create, no, I want to choose Qatari, and we want to create child, and we want to do a child with Terrell. There we go. That's kind of cool. Let's see, how do you look as an adult? Maybe. I'm going to keep randomizing. Remember, we can change the gender once we get done with that, or once we get done with the randomization. I'm going to keep this look, and I'm going to change the coloration. So instead of this, we'll kind of have this a little bit darker, and this will be gray, and this will be kind of grayish here. Yeah, that looks good. And why is that looking green? Is that because of this color? Should I opt for a more bluish one? Yeah, that'll be alright. And then what we'll do is we will change the nose color. And then we're gonna go back to puppy. We'll go back here, we'll set, okay, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and keep, and this will be Lucan. Lucan was also from the first litter, and he turned out to be a kind of grayish looking wolf. He was a little bit more blonde when he was a puppy, and again, we will set his eyes to be blue, because that is just how wolf puppies are. But, no, don't do this to me, please. Excuse me, please. There we go. We will set his eyes to be blue. But he did turn out to be more of a grayish wolf. So I'm kind of combining their adult looks with their puppy looks a little bit here, so that there's some distinguishing characteristics here. So Lucan was very adventurous because he journeyed all the way to the world of wolf and ended up making a home for himself there, and then eventually came all the way back. This is curious. I would say he's curious because he also journeyed through Lost River. Again, it kind of goes along with being an adventurer. And let's see, he's probably... I would say he might be maybe hunter, maybe. I'm gonna go with smart because he made his way. He got around quite a bit. Let's also listen to his bark. I imagine he had a higher pitched bark. I just can see that quite well here. So that will be a Lucan, and we'll go ahead, play with genetics again. We're gonna go back to Qatari, and we're gonna go back to create her child with Terrell, and we'll look through them again, and we'll see. And I'm gonna keep randomizing, and we'll see what we get. We're looking for... Actually, what were these previous ones? I kind of like this one. I'm gonna keep this one because this is very close to, if we shift some of the colors, how I imagine... That's very bright yellow. I was just curious to see how bright that was actually gonna be, and the answer is very. But if we adjust this a little bit, and if we make some of these, that's gonna be... Okay, so these should be darker. This could go even lighter. This should probably stay darker. This should be darkest. And then this should stay lighter. what we'll do here is we'll go ahead, we'll change the nose, and some of you guys might recognize this kind of patterning if you guys remember Apollo. Apollo was one of the puppies from the first one. Let's change him back to be a puppy. And he was quite blonde even when he was young, but he still grew up to be very blonde in coloration as well. We'll make sure we get his gender set properly. Did we get Lucan's gender and Neo's gender? Yes, we did. Okay. And that's a pretty good bark, I feel. And we have all the relationships set right, and he is a wolf. And the first trait we're going to give him is Troublemaker, because that, let's face it, that was Apollo. He was a very, he was a character. He got himself into a lot of trouble as a pup. He was always getting into various situations. He was also stubborn, and he was very active. So he kind of has, he was definitely the hyper pup of the litter, and he was something else really. So that's Apollo, and I feel like that does suit him quite well. He had a good heart despite being kind of a crazy wolf sometimes, despite being a little bit too what would be the word for him? What would be a good word for him? I don't know. He was pretty fearless. That's a pretty cool look, but it's really not what we're looking for. We're gonna keep going, and let's actually put it on randomized daughter, because we know the last wolf has to be Cassidy, who was also quite adventurous. Let's see. And that's actually, that's very similar to Terrell, but I don't like the facial features that much. I don't feel they're very fitting. Maybe if we adjust the ears? Yeah, that actually is quite nice, and maybe the muzzle too, if we kind of just bring it in a slight bit, make it a little bit less heavy. We're gonna go with that. And again, we did change his eyes, okay. And this will be Cassidy. And Cassidy is the last pup from the first litter, which is probably, honestly, all we're gonna get through this time. And, so we'll do the others some other time, assuming you want to see them. Let's go ahead. Well, we'll choose that after. Let's put it back to puppy, and I'm gonna give her a bit of a higher pitched voice there, and let's change her eye color again to be that bluish color, because that is how the eyes would look when they're younger. And let's see. We have our gender set properly, all the relationships are set properly, and we're gonna go ahead and see. So she was definitely an adventurous wolf. She was also a bit of a troublemaker. I don't think she could quite compete with Apollo on that one though, although she did follow in his footsteps sometimes. So I think though she was also fairly stubborn, and she was also pretty independent, and I feel like that's a fairly good depiction of Cassidy. It's been so long since I've worked with these guys. It's been a while, and it's so great to be able to kind of to play around with them again, and to get to see, or to kind of get to recreate them here. It's a huge throwback for me to the very start of my channel, really. But yeah, so I think that's going to be how we depict these guys, and I feel like that's a fairly good depiction of them, but you have to let me know what you guys think. So if you guys want to see more of us working with our Wolfquest wolves in Sims 4, definitely let me know, and we can continue to randomize some of the other litters and continue through the generations, and kind of get a Sims 4 version of how we feel some of these guys might look. So let's go ahead and take a look at everybody again. We have Qatari. She is the matriarch of the family, probably the grand matriarch, because she was the very first one we ever followed. And so of course she is always going to be a very special wolf. She's also the channel mascot. She's the wolf you probably keep seeing around on everything. She's basically become the face of the channel in so many ways. And so here we have Qatari, and of course her mate Terrell, who is also quite well known, and who, again, they're the founding mother and founding father of the entire Wolfquest legacy we have up until this point. So they're always going to be very important in the pack's history. And then we have Neo, little Neo, who is brown in coloration, and she was, even as a pup, We have Lucan, who's grayish. He started out more blonde in the actual game, but I made him more grayish here just for the sake of distinguishing. And then Apollo, who is a very blonde, very orangey brown. And last but not least, Cassidy. So you can see, even as puppies, there's quite a bit of distinction there. But yeah, so this is the first generation of the first generation, or I guess first or second, depending on what generation you count Qatari and Terrell to be. But the first set of heirs we ever had, and these are the first litter of puppies we ever had in Wolfquest. So we can go ahead and make the others next time you guys want to see more Wolfquest in Sims 4, and we'll go ahead and make the rest. But for now, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode here for today. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. But until then, this is Jay, over and out.